Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. Alright, and now here I am continuing with my countdown of reviews for my picks for the top 10 best animated DreamWorks movies. And now here I am with my review for my choice for number 7, which is Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. So really, I never hear people really talk about this film very much. I mean, I think this is like the most overlooked DreamWorks film of all time, really, because just really nobody really talks about this film very much. I mean, they talk about like other DreamWorks animated movies, like they talk about Shrek, and they talk about like Chicken Run, they talk about like Madagascar, they talk about Kung Fu Panda, they talk about Ants, but really nobody really talks about this film. And really, I mean, I think this is, I just really don't think, like, probably this film at the time really didn't really leave that big of an impact because, I mean, this film was just coming off of the heels of Shrek at the time, so I guess maybe, like, just because of how much love Shrek got, people probably just really thought that this really didn't really hold a candle to Shrek. And, yeah, it really doesn't, but, I mean, this still, overall, I think that this is a pretty good film overall. I mean, yeah, I watched Nostalgia Critic's Dream Mortuary review for this movie, and he says overall that he thinks that this is a good film, but he says that he thinks that some of the choices they made in this film were kind of like strange. Like they had like Matt Damon as like the narrating voice of Spirit in this film, and they also have like 80s style music in this film and stuff. So yeah, he just feels that some of the choices that were made for this film were like kind of odd. And yeah, there were like some unusual choices made for this film. But I mean, yeah, it's still like this film did turn out being pretty good. I mean, yeah, he said in his DreamWorks review for this movie that with the kind of story that this film tells, it's like pretty hard to really make this film like really great. But yeah, it's really impressive that it turned out really being as good as it was, considering like the what they had to work with in this film. And yeah, the film did like turn out being pretty good. Yeah, one thing I really did like about this film is that like this film like has like a bunch of horses in it, and what I really like about it is like none of the animals in this film actually talk. Like really everything like involving the animals in this film, like the story is really told just through facial expressions and stuff. So yeah, the animals really don't talk in this, and I really like that about this film. I mean, if this film was actually like done by like a studio like Disney or something, they probably would have had this be a film with the animals actually talking and stuff. So I do actually like that DreamWorks decided to take the route of not actually have the animals talk and really just have the story be told through their faces. So I really like that about it. Yeah, really the only dialogue from any of the animals in this film was basically just like Matt Damon like narrating as Spirit. Yeah, that's really the only time we actually hear any like actual talking from the animals like like in this actual film like Spirit doesn't actually say anything at all. Like we never actually see him speaking, we just hear him speak when he narrates. Yeah, that's the only type of dialogue we actually hear from the animals at all. Like on screen we don't actually see any of the animals talking at all. So I really do like that about this film. And yeah, this film is set like during the time of the Indian Wars in like the 19th century American West. So yeah, there's like during the battle between like Native Americans and the army and stuff. And this film shows that like there are like horses, animals like being captured by members of the army, and also like some of the natives end up being captured. And there's one in this film that ends up like the army ends up capturing at first Little Creek, but then like eventually ends up escaping, and we actually do see like his village and stuff. And so yeah, I really do like that about this film. And then yeah, it shows then how yeah, in the opening of this film, it really does show like what like Spirit's when he's like was first introduced into like his herd, and he eventually became the leader. And yeah, this shows like he's really like a real brave and courageous leader, but also has an active curiosity. And yeah, this will just show like how courageous he is. Like he ends up like fighting the army a lot of times and just protecting a lot of like other horses and people and stuff. And yeah, I really do like that, and it really just shows like how big of a heart Spirit really has and how courageous he really is. So yeah, Spirit, he is a pretty good main character for this. And yeah, I think overall that the film overall it is pretty good. It has a pretty good plot to this, some pretty good characters to it, a good story, and so yeah, I think that with what they had to work with, I think they probably did as good as they could with this film. So yeah, I think overall this film definitely did succeed. I would give this film 3.25 stars out of 4. I mean, yeah, it really was like a really enjoyable film. Like Nostalgia Critic said, like in his review for this, like this would probably like be worth the time. This is really like more like geared towards adults with the story and stuff, and like without the talking animals and stuff. So yeah, this one really is kind of like one of the more adult style films. And yeah, the story for this is kind of like some that you would see in like an adult western film too. So yeah, I guess like this isn't like one of the ones that is really like entirely geared to like kids and stuff. Like it's really like has more than usual for adults. So yeah, pretty good film overall. So yeah, let me just get right into it. Alright, so as the film opens, it shows that Spirit is like born as a colt, and then yeah, he just like is born to a herd of horses, and then over time he does grow into a stallion, and he is eventually made like the leader of his herd of horses, and he has the responsibility to keep everybody in the herd safe. And then, one night, then Spirit then like noticed a light that was nearby from the herd, and then he went to investigate the light, and then it shows that like he found like some horses ended up being restrained, and it shows like their human wranglers were just like sleeping, and a Spirit was like observing them, but then like eventually woke them up, and then once they saw Spirit, they just found saw him as pretty much like a real good specimen, and so then as Spirit tried to make a break for it, the like humans then decided to then they gave chase to Spirit, yeah, and then yeah, Spirit was like trying to evade them, but they eventually ended up capturing him, and they eventually ended up taking him to a cavalry post. And yeah, Spirit then noticed that all of the other horses that were at the post, and he then just felt that they were being used as slaves. And then the colonel then arrived, and then he just decided to have Spirit end up being tamed. But yeah, Spirit was of course like really difficult to tame. And then yeah, there were like all these attempts to actually tame Spirit, but Spirit ended up fighting off all of the attempts. Yeah, and then like the colonel then just decided to have Spirit it be tied to a post for 3 days without any food or water in an attempt to weaken him. Yeah, and during that time, then like there was like a Lakota Native American, Little Creek, as I was talking about earlier. He ended up being brought over to the fort also, and he was being held captive himself. Yeah, and then after the 3 days had passed, then like the colonel then was like trying to show that Spirit could be tamed then. And then yeah, he was just like riding Spirit throughout the pen, and yeah, and Spirit like tried to throw him off, but he couldn't. And it seemed at first that the Spirit was actually broken in, but then he eventually ended up like gaining a second win, and he finally ended up throwing the colonel off. And then yeah, the colonel then was just like real frustrated, and he was like about to shoot Spirit, but then Little Creek ended up cutting himself free with a knife, and then yeah, he ended up saving Spirit, and then yeah, Spirit and Little Creek ended up escaping, and they also ended up freeing the other horses being held in the post. Yeah, and then they eventually like met up with like Little Creek's mayor named Rain, along with like a couple of other natives from Little Creek's village, but then like they end up like capturing Spirit and then taking him to their village. Yeah, and then like over time, like Little Creek was like really trying to tame Spirit like the other way, that the army wasn't doing it. Yeah, Little Creek was like trying to do it with a lot more kindness and stuff, but yeah, Spirit then was just like refusing to let Little Creek actually ride him. And then like Little Creek then just decided to tie Spirit together with Rain. Yeah. And then yeah, over time of course like Spirit like formed a romantic connection with Rain. Yeah. And then yeah, then just Rain was then just showing Spirit then just her world and stuff. Yeah. And then like Little Creek later on was like trying to ride Spirit again, but then Spirit then just was still not letting Little Creek ride him. Yeah. And then just like Little Creek finally just came to the conclusion that Spirit won't ever be able to be tamed, and then he decided to free him, and then Spirit then just was wanting Rain to come with him to his herd. Yeah, but then yeah, the army then then launched another attack on the village. Yeah, and during the battle, like the colonel then was there, and he was like trying to shoot Little Creek, but then like Spirit ended up saving Little Creek and just ran into the colonel and his horse. Yeah, and the shot ended up being deflected. It did, but then Rain like ended up being shot by the colonel, and then Rain was then knocked into the river, and yeah, Spirit then just dove in to try to save Rain, but he wasn't able to do it, and they both just fell over a waterfall. Yeah, and then yeah, Spirit then just saw that Rain was like real starting to die on the impact of the waterfall. Yeah, and yeah, Spirit just ended up like staying by her side, but then the army eventually ended up capturing Spirit and took him away. And like Little Creek then just saw Spirit being taken away, and he was just staying by Rain's side attending her. But yeah, he vowed to free Spirit here to satisfy his light death, and then yeah, he gave chase to the men. So yeah, and yeah, it then just showed then like Spirit was then taken to the Transcontinental Railroad, and he was just like put to work to pull a steam locomotive. Yeah, and yeah, Spirit eventually like discovered that the track was like heading towards his homeland, and then Spirit like ended up breaking free, and then he ended up breaking the chains that were holding the other horses, and yeah, they all escaped, and then the locomotive just ended up like fall hauling in ended up like rolling down back to the work site, and yeah, that ended up like causing a big explosion, and like there was a wild fire that was forming, and then yeah, Little Creek then like arrived, and then he ended up like saving Spirit from the fire. Yeah, and then yeah, the next morning, and then like the Colonel and his army were then just like trying to chase Spirit and Little Creek through the Grand Canyon, and then it showed eventually like Spirit and Little Creek ended up like being cornered by a gorge, and yeah, Little Creek was then like gonna give up, but then yeah, Spirit then just like leaped over the gorge across the canyon, and then yeah, then just the colonel was just like really amazed by what Spirit had did, and then that's when he then decided to like stop the men from going after Spirit and Little Creek, and then he allowed them to leave. And then yeah, Spirit and Little Creek then ended up like returning to the village, and that showed then that Rain ended up being like nursed back to health. Yeah. And then, yeah, Little Creek then just decided to set Rain free with Spirit, and he referred to Spirit as Spirit who could not be broken. And yeah, he just told Spirit to take care of Little Creek, and then yeah, Spirit and Little Creek, not Spirit and Rain, then just took off, and then yeah, they then eventually like arrived back to Spirit's homeland, and then yeah, it showed them that they were reunited with Spirit's herd, and then Spirit like reunited with his mother and stuff, and then yeah, it then just like showed Spirit and Little Creek just watching over the herd before the film then cut to credits, and yeah, that's how it ended. So yeah, a pretty good film overall. Like not really a great film or anything, but yeah, like I was saying earlier, it was like pretty hard to really make this kind of story great. And yeah, like I said, I guess that they did this film like as good as they could make it. So yeah, if you're interested in it, yeah, this is definitely like worth a watch. Like it won't disappoint you. Yeah, but yeah, if you can actually like, if you're a fan of this type of story, like if you're a fan of westerns and stuff like Nostalgia Critic said in his review, it's really down to personal preferences. Like if you like this kind of genre and story, you'll probably get some enjoyment out of it. But if you don't, it probably really isn't really the best film for you. But yeah, regardless, like if you can put up with it, it's worth a watch. So yeah. So yeah, it's really down to personal preference, really, to recommend. So yeah, but it is a good film overall. All right, so yeah, that does it for my review of Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.